Welcome to Passive Aggressive Income. This program may contain strong language. The content may not be suitable for audiences under the age of 17. We understand many of our listeners may not agree with all of our personal viewpoints. We in no way, shape, or form mean to be offensive to anyone. Our show notes will provide all of our source material included for each episode. Now let's get passive aggressive.
Hello and welcome back to Passive Aggressive Income. We are your hosts. I'm Lexi with Mims, and Mims is gonna tell us some stories today. I am so excited for this.
Yeah, I've been actually dying to do this episode for many reasons. So, this episode is the craziest real estate stories that I have come across.
I love
So,
it.
managing my own properties and working for a large property management company has given me a ton of landlord experience, as you can imagine. It has also given me quite a lot of crazy stories to tell that I will be talking about in this episode. So, yes, some of the stories are crazy, maybe a little bit funny, and just kind of plain out weird. But to me, it's almost like the perfect human behavior study.
Hmm.
The majority of the tenants are normal, they have jobs, they're respectful people, and they just want a peaceful place to call their own. However, some of them are not like that. You may come across some schemers, some people that are like abusive, manipulative, lazy, mentally ill, or just lacking common sense. So these are their stories. Dun dun. Also, I'm not gonna mention any names for obvious reasons, so I'll just keep it a little bit broad in that sense.
Yeah, I'm really interested in what these stories are going to be because I think like every landlord or if you are a property manager, you're going to come across weird things that happen like this.
Yeah.
And I think that on the tenant side of things, for people who don't own properties or manage tenants, like they really don't know what goes on in our lives and like the kind of
Mm,
shit that we have to deal with. So I think that this is like going to be good, both therapeutic from a landlord's perspective and also just like interesting from a tenant's perspective. And
mm.
hopefully people will learn something on like how to, just be better tenants too.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an eye opener to what we deal with and what kind of people are out there.
Yeah.
Just things, red flags you should look out for too.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is my first story that I'm going to start off with. Let's call this guy Larry.
Okay.
So we sign Larry as a new tenant, and Larry needs to pay rent for the first month. And he calls and he says, "Hey, look, I'm not able to pay my month's rent. I'm going to need an extension." And I'm like, "Okay, well, that's not great. We just moved you in. This is your first month. I don't think are starting off on the right foot.
Yeah.
But what can I do? I have to work with you, obviously." So, working with Larry, I wait about a week to see what's going on with him. He doesn't end up paying. So, he's like, "You know what? I need to make an appointment with you face to face." And I'm like, "Sure, I really don't need to make an appointment with you to talk about this because I'm already talking to you about paying your rent. That's all you
Right.
need to do." But he insisted. So, Larry decides to come and make a special appointment with me, and he comes in a three-piece suit. So one of those jackets, one of the
Mhm.
vests, and just like,
Wow.
just like really, and I'm like in an office where it's business casual, so I'm like, this is not necessary.
Yeah.
We sit down and Larry's telling me, "I've been working in Milwaukee and for this new company, and my funds are really tied up. And my funds are being tied up by the uh, Milwaukee city inspector." And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
They're just not
And
paying you?
right, they're holding his funds for some reason.
Hmm.
So I say, "Sure, Larry. Can you provide me proof of this happening? Because then it's not your fault.
Right. To be more
then I
flexible, willing to work with him.
Right, right. But mostly I said this because I wanted to see where he was going to go with this. So Larry says, "Yeah, I'm going to get you that letter." So he sends over an emailed letter from Chase. Supposedly that's his bank, and it says his funds are being held because the city inspector is doing an open investigation and he's not able to release any of the funds in order to pay any of his bills at this time, and that he should be given leniency. And I'm like, this is sketchy to me.
Yeah,
So
didn't know Chase had such an opinion on needing leniency.
I know. So what I do, I go to my boss at that time and I'm like, I need to look into this further. There's something fishy going on. I don't trust Larry,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna need to do some follow-ups here. And he says, go ahead. And I ended up calling the number that was listed, because people that if you send a letter, you usually have like the representative's name, what their
Yeah.
title is, their number, email, all of that stuff. So there was a number on there, and I called it, and it was very obvious that it was like a text number, like you're not able to make a call to this number, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
that's weird because isn't this Chase?
Right. Should be able to call Chase Bank. They're pretty big.
Right. So I ended up Googling the name of the person that he listed on that letter. And I called her, who was an actual representative at the bank, who only did mortgage lending, by the way. And she's like, I have no idea who this person is. I don't even know if they bank here with us.
Oh my
I have
God.
never signed this document. In fact, this is fraudulent because he's faking my signature,
Yeah.
and I'm going to have to report it.
Wow.
So I called this lady. She says that she's going to be reporting you for creating this fraudulent Chase letter with their letterhead and her fake signature. So
Mhm.
that's going to be one thing that you're going to be going through here very shortly. You have been avoiding paying your rent for your first month.
Yeah.
And now, unfortunately, we're going to have to start the eviction. And he swore up and down that the letter was real, blah, blah,
Oh my
blah.
God.
I'm like, all right, Larry, whatever you say.
Oh,
So none of that
Larry.
obviously was real. And you have to really follow up with these things, because if somebody
Mhm.
gives you a letter like that, and you want to say, you don't want to just take them at their word, because
Yeah.
it's just they'll try to work around you as much as they can.
Hmm. Yeah, like I like to think the best in people, but when it comes to business, you really have to sort of be the opposite, where you gotta be like, okay, let's look for all the red flags here and try and suss it out and talk to other people and follow up on like recommendations and everything and make sure that those are legitimate because it's a
Exactly.
business that you're running.
Right. And it's just really not a good first impression. Like, you are going to start off on a lie to cover up the fact that you don't have money to pay for rent for your first month.
And be so adamant about it once you're caught. Like, bro, just admit
Mm,
it.
right. So we ended up taking Larry through the eviction process. He didn't last there that long, and it's probably for the best, because I feel like if that was month one, I don't want to see him at month 12 and what
No,
he could conjure up. So it's better to cut your losses, honestly.
absolutely.
Next story. So we were getting phone calls one day, and from very concerned tenants. They said, hey, listen, I don't feel comfortable walking in our parking lot. There is a man walking around, get this, with a large yellow type python snake wrapped around him,
What?
and going up to people, threatening them. And I don't feel comfortable walking around with this guy just nonchalantly walking around our parking lot. And we're like, what do you mean walking around with the snake? And they're like, this guy has a few chains on him, like gold chains, walking around with a big ass snake,
Oh my
just like
God.
threatening people. So we get somebody out there, and it turns out this guy doesn't even live there. And
Well,
he
that's
just put
probably for the best.
right. And I'm like, why is this guy? So forever since that happened, we've called that the snake intimidation tactic.
Snake intimidation. Oh my God. That's actually insane. So, did you guys just like shoo him out of there, or how did you?
Basically, yeah, we just said, "Hey, listen, you don't live here. You are harassing our tenants. We will call the cops and make sure that you are removed from the property because this is privately owned.
Mhm.
And plus, you are, like I said, harassing them. You can't be doing that, especially with the snake. Like it's really menacing in a weird way. So you
Yeah,
need to
that's
go." And
insane.
that was the only time that we encountered this man, but
Mhm.
I never thought that I would get phone calls from snake intimidations.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. Well, this was like a legit, like real snake, like you said.
Mhm. Yeah.
Who approved that? Wow.
Right. All right. My next story is kind of on the scarier side, and this is why I got into true crime because I think every woman, unfortunately, needs to be really aware of her surroundings and take extra precautions, especially if you live alone.
Hmm.
So basically, this girl was living in a apartment complex, and she was not getting along with one of her neighbors. And the neighbor was a guy, and they were kind of just like being negative towards each other and just being petty. Until one day, the guy took it way too far, and he started gluing where her key would go, so she couldn't lock or unlock it. So it was basically like she could just walk on in, or anybody can just walk
Oh
on
my
in.
God.
Yeah. So he was doing that, and then he would be waiting in the parking lot to see like if she were to be like pulling up in her spot or not. And it would get really weird. Like he was living above her, and he would drop like piss down on her balcony and just
What?
like just be really
Oh
nasty
my God.
towards her. And with the glue situation, that really and I forgot to mention, glued the keyhole and glued her the little peephole as well, so she couldn't see out.
Oh, that's really sketchy.
Exactly. So obviously we had to replace that because that's a security concern.
Hmm.
But as a woman, you need to be on top of this. When it comes to men violating your space like this. So this is not something that you should be like, oh, it's fine. Like I can get it fixed, and he'll
Hmm.
move on from this. This is not that type of situation.
No.
You need to contact your property manager as soon as possible because they shouldn't be doing this regardless of the gender, but B, this is a huge safety concern for you as a woman.
Especially when, like your home should be the most safe, private place where you feel comfortable. And if this person literally like lives above you and you feel threatened by them, that's something you need to bring to your landlord's attention immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like you're bothering us when it comes to this type of
Mhm.
situation. It's definitely something that we want to get in front of. Like, we don't
Yeah.
want to be called and at 2 o'clock in the morning saying my neighbor broke into my house and now the cops are here. Like that is not the time to call. The
Oh,
the time to call was the beginning steps of, oh, he is waiting for me in the parking lot, or he's setting trash into the my under my hood, which he
yeah.
was doing. And just like these are the times where you should reach out because it's only going to escalate if he's already doing these things.
Right. Yeah, that's insane behavior, and it's hard to predict like what he's gonna do next.
Exactly. So girls, I know there's a lot of things that you can buy out there. I've seen people for like hotel rooms, there's like an extra lock mechanism that you can put. Having an in-home security camera also great.
Yeah.
Pepper spray, obviously. Just be careful. Make sure that, and I hate to put it on like women's shoulders to
Yeah.
do all of this extra stuff, but nobody else is going to take care of you besides you, unfortunately.
Hmm.
And as much as like there's good people in this world. This example just shows that there are people that you should be concerned with.
Yeah, it's just the sad reality of it is like, yes, we would love to be like, men are going to do better and like people in general are going to do better. But unfortunately, like if you are a woman who's living alone, these are just kind of things that you have to think about. And it's
Hmm.
not fair. And you shouldn't have to be, putting in the extra time and money and effort to make sure that you're safe. But it's definitely a consideration when things like this are happening.
Absolutely. So the next things that I want to talk about are just general things. So, of course, there have been a handful of situations when we go through an eviction process where things get a little bit out of hand. There's a few things that come to mind that on eviction day. So let's say the sheriff is there. What had happened was a lot of people jump through windows and they run from the sheriff to avoid I don't know what because it's not like they're being arrested or anything like that. They
Right.
just are in a weird
Panicking.
situation.
Yeah.
uh, Acting like they're not there until we forcibly open the door. That happens a lot as well because they think that it's not going to get to that point, and then if they just stay quiet, that will go away. That's definitely a thing. And then one of the worst eviction situations that I personally have been a part of was one of the tenants had a dog that they let loose on one of the sheriffs and the cops that were trying to get them out of there. And I believe one of the cops did get bit.
Oh no.
So that was pretty unfortunate as well.
Yeah, evictions. I'm so grateful that I've never had to deal with them, knock on
Yeah.
wood. Because yeah, that sounds like really hard to do as a landlord and also just really hard to have to deal with that whole process. And I imagine if you're being unhoused, then you're gonna act unpredictably, and that's just kind of a
Mm.
scary situation to be in.
That is like the truth. It's just you said it perfectly. When somebody's losing their home and they think like they're going to get away with it
Mhm.
for X, Y, or Z, and then the reality is actually hitting them in the face of this is happening. The sheriff is here. They have guns. They can forcibly remove me and all of my
Mhm.
stuff if I don't comply. Yeah, that will make people act a certain way if they choose to be that way.
Mhm. Yeah.
Then there are the move outs where people move out and leave literally everything behind, as if they just kind of like started a new life and just
Oh my
left
God.
everything like furniture, clothes, everything that they could. And unfortunately, sometimes it'll be like a month and then they'll try to get back and be like, "Where's all my stuff?" And it's like, "What do you mean? Didn't you just freaking leave and leave all your personal belongings behind?" Um,
Yeah, what did you think was gonna happen? We were just gonna leave it there for you just in case you showed back up?
Yeah, apparently people do think that way, actually. So there is a certain amount of time that you have to hold it.
Hmm.
However, with an eviction process, they need to have everything out that day. Otherwise, it goes on to whatever we decide to do with it.
Right. Have you ever been in that situation and ended up like getting some, I mean, this sounds so bad, but have you ever gotten sort of like interesting things that you've been able to like keep or sell or like make money off of from a situation like that?
Yeah, absolutely. TVs, a lot of them don't want to carry out a big TV, especially if it's an eviction process, where they think that they're not going to be forced out.
Hmm.
We tend to sell those because they rarely come back for anything, honestly.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's it's not like we can hold it for that long anyways because there's storage needs. Not everybody has
Right.
like if it's a single family home and we have somebody else moving in, they're going to need that space. So I'm not going to buy a storage unit to house all of your shit because you didn't pay me for rent.
Well, right. And in addition to that, like you're going through the eviction process, like you're paying for fees because you
Oh
have to
yeah.
go through this process and now it's time you can't rent the unit too. So it's sort of like if they're not going
Yeah.
to pay rent, at least you can get something out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know some people like have sold like bedroom sets that were left behind. There's entertainment centers that were left behind as well. TVs are a big thing because
Yeah.
everybody needs a TV. The rest that is just junk just goes to donations. Fortunately for the people that need it.
Yeah.
Unfortunate for the people that weren't able to remove all their stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
One time there was a mountains, piles of beer cans everywhere.
Oh my
Like you
God.
couldn't even see the floor because here would be like a pile of beer cans, over there would be, and then just like random crap just like all over the place. But I've never seen that many beer cans in one place in all my life.
That's
That was
really
insane.
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of when I bought my first duplex and it was like a really really cold winter and my pipes froze and then
Mm,
we discovered like a month after buying this new house like oh there's a crawl space that we didn't know about where all the pipes go through in the basement and that's where our pipes were freezing because it was like they just kind of walled it off and pretended it didn't
uh,
exist. So we had to go into that little crawl space and like clean it out and then end up paying to insulate it. And
mhm.
we were just pulling out like I don't even know, 30 empty handles of cheap vodka. I'm just like some dude lived here and hiding his like alcohol addiction from his wife and was just throwing like the empty vodka bottles in this crawl space and we just discovered it.
Oh my god, and it would have lived there forever if you didn't go up
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, I'm like, I wonder how long this has just been sitting in here, and like, holy shit, that's a lot of alcohol to consume.
Oh my, that's so sad.
I
Like,
know.
that's what I'm telling you. This is the way people live. You definitely get an insight
Hmm.
on that when you are a landlord or a property manager because it not everybody lives the same. It's
No,
just not the same across the board. And some people, you walk into the apartment, I'm like, this is so cute. I wouldn't have pictured doing all this in here. Like, they made it their home.
right.
Then you go next door, literally the next apartment, and it's disgusting. It smells like piss. You see like water bottles full of piss
Oh my God,
everywhere.
no.
Yup. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. I've definitely seen that.
Oh, that's so gross.
Or people just not letting their dogs out and they're doing it all over the freaking
Mm,
carpet or the
nice.
you know the LVP. There's people that that they've never cleaned out their fridge in the entire time that
Hmm.
they've lived there. It's crazy the way that some people live.
Yeah, it really is. You get a whole new perspective as a landlord.
Yeah. Another time we had to do, well, a few times we had to do wellness checks, and it turned out that one of the guys had died
Oh my
and
God.
had been rotting on the carpet for about a week. So there was a clear stain of his body just melted onto the carpet, which was pretty insane.
That's
It was,
horrifying. You
yeah, it
had to
was.
go and see this? Did
I
you
seen
discover
pictures,
it? Oh, okay.
but our crew had to go in there and they had to make sure that there was somebody in there, just either
Yeah.
like because the smell it was horrific.
Oh my God.
So they went in there and they were afraid that they were hurt or something like
Mm.
that. And turns out the man was deceased and it was not a good way to go. And the house or the apartment was completely just vile. And there was, you remove the body and the body was like, it was evident somebody died.
Yeah. That's honestly one of my worst nightmares as a landlord. Like I cannot imagine having to deal with something like that. I'm like actively freaked out about this situation happening.
I don't know why it doesn't quite freak me out the way it should.
You're a true crime girl.
That's true. I don't know what I'm saying. You're right. There has also been really interesting times where people, uh, are struggling with addiction or mental illnesses, and you can clearly see that in their apartments. I
Mhm.
remember one guy who had like a whole bunch of straws like lined up maybe glued, I forget if it was glued or nailed, right next to the door. And you could see like the precision of each straw lined up was crazy to me. I was like, I've never seen anything like this before.
That's very strange.
Also, there was another tenant that had a whole bunch of electronics just ripped apart all over their apartment. And I think that's definitely something, and we saw needles, so it was like definitely
Oh.
something like an addiction would, with paranoia would probably
Mhm.
induce all of this. Like, I need to find out what, the mechanics are of this electronic. Maybe somebody's listening to me right now, but it
Yeah.
was kind of odd to see that.
Yeah, that's kind of freaky.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, these stories are interesting and weird to talk about, but I think it also helps people understand how much human behavior and dealing with these types of people, how much work it goes into and all of different things that we have to take care of and deal with.
Mhm.
Yeah, you are not always going to get the nice, friendly tenant who pays on time and only calls because of emergencies. You may get some tenants who are different,
Yes.
hard to deal with, and want to get away with as much as they can because it's just in their nature.
Hmm.
This episode was meant to be fun, but it was also meant to inform people who are new to real estate and hands-on management that crazy things happen and it's just a part of the job. So it's not always going to be, radio silence. And if it is, good for you. You're doing something right and you
Yeah.
have the keys to the kingdom because I don't have that yet. I think one thing that I have learned that has significantly helped me is the fact that I had to force myself to leave work at work and not to think about all the crazy, fucked up shit that happened during my day at work and bring it home.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, though. Of course, I would want to talk to my husband about it as, to try to decompress.
Yeah.
But the negative thing that I would do would just go over it again and again and maybe think of maybe I should have done this or I
Mhm.
can't believe that they live like that or just kind of unhealthy, just really fixating on what happened that
Yeah.
it just kind of takes over my personal life.
I relate to that so much. Like I mean, that's honestly one of the biggest reasons why I switched from doing a short-term rental through Airbnb to something a little bit longer and doing midterm rentals was because like dealing with the tenants and like the stress of these weird situations that happen when you do have so many turnovers and you don't really like trust the person that's in your house, like that
Mm,
really was getting to me. And I would just like think through like I could have done this better. I should have asked this ahead of time.
yes.
And that's so real as a landlord.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with like reflecting and learning. Like if you sit down
Mhm.
and you say, "Man, that's a good learning experience for me. I'm going to write that down on what I should
Yeah.
do on a different time that I could prevent this from happening."
Mhm.
That's totally normal and really a great thing for you to practice, but don't hound yourself on things that you can't change, honestly.
Yeah.
Like you can't go back in time and been like, well, I was short with this person.
Mhm.
Just make sure tomorrow is better. Or you find out that, snake intimidation guy is, roaming the streets. So like don't let that affect you when you go to
Right.
bed
Mhm.
because it's work. So leave that at work.
Yeah.
I think this episode also helps tenants understand everything that we as landlords go through on a daily basis. They have this misconception that we are, big, bad, rich, fat cats that just collect money
Hmm.
and just like want to bleed them dry for some reason. But collecting rent payments is only a part of the job. If anything, it's a very small part of the job.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're good at being a property manager or a hands-on landlord, your time is consistently occupied with maintenance requests, tenant disputes. I kid you not, the amount of times that I have to deal with parking related issues
Oh my
is
gosh.
insane. And this is why I recommend do not do assigned parking because people are going to bitch and bitch about other people parking in their assigned, just free for all. Park wherever you're going to freaking park, honestly.
Yep, that's good advice.
And we also do capital improvements, evictions, lease violations, cleaning, making sure
Yeah.
that utilities, insurance, taxes are being taken care of, leasing, move out, rent renewals, and just so much more that you don't even think about until you listen to this episode and you're like, damn, that would have been a whole day of nonsense because
Hmm.
of human behavior,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's part of what's so important about, I think, doing this podcast is because maybe a lot of people who listen to this podcast are in their 20s and don't have properties and aren't landlords. But I hope it kind of helps change the perspective of how people think about landlords as a whole. I mean, like, I get it. There are some really shitty landlords out there who are
Oh
just
yeah.
there to collect a paycheck, but it's not all of us. And there's so much more that we have to do on top of that, on top of just like collecting rent that goes into making it a nice, safe place for people to stay.
Right. And like the good ones, like Lexi and I, put in a lot of work and you could see it, especially with Lexi, with all the money and sweat and sure tears that go into all
Oh,
of the
yeah.
things you do.
Blood.
Yeah, exactly. Like for anybody to be like, well, you're just greedy and you just want my money. Well, no shit. Like I definitely want to collect your money
I want
because
a
you're
return on my investment.
right. But I'm the one who, did all of this stuff. I'm the one who has to maintain all of this stuff. And I'm the one who has to make sure that it is a comfortable place for you to live at. And it's not like I'm doing this. I'm not going to work for free. You wouldn't work for
Mhm.
free. So
Right.
why should I?
Exactly. Like providing housing is a service, and that's a service
Yes.
that should be paid for.
Hmm. Exactly. So that's a wrap on the craziest real estate stories that I have encountered so far. I'm sure I will have an updated episode at some point because I'm
Mhm.
back in the property management game and I can't wait to share updated stories on that.
Yes, and we are excited to hear more stories because those are some really interesting situations you've been in. And
Yeah,
yeah, it was very interesting to hear because I know we've been both wanting to like make episodes like this for a while. So it's a good, interesting one to continue our second year of podcasting.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for listening to us this week. Make sure you stay tuned for another episode next week. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram if you haven't already. And then make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify as well.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. We'll see you next Monday.
Bye.
Passive Aggressive Income was written, recorded, edited, and produced by co-hosts and creators Mims and Lexi. We truly want to thank our listeners, collaborators, friends, and family that continuously support us for all the love we receive. If you enjoy our show, please give us a glowing rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, follow us on Facebook and Instagram to see what we are up to. For any inquiries, please email passiveaggressiveincome2023@gmail.com. Episodes of Passive Aggressive Income are available wherever you listen to podcasts, so make sure to subscribe and like us on your favorite streaming platform.